What's going on there, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Craftavore Tastes, and a very special episode of the Craftavore Tastes today. We're diving into a beer from Monkish Brewing Company out of Torrance, California. This is Foggier Window. So if you don't know anything about Monkish, they are arguably probably one of the most hyped breweries in the country, if not the most hyped brewery, and are kind of leading the pack for a hazy IPA, New England style kind of IPA, out of the West Coast these days. And their releases, are very small kind of batches, are literally sold out in minutes or hours, and people line up, by the hundreds to get their cans. So I want to give a huge, massive shout out and thank you to my buddy Bud for hooking me up with this can. I put up a post on Instagram that basically showed this and a couple of other Modern Times online only distro beers that Bud sent across for me. And I cannot tell you how freaking stoked I am to do this review, and Bud made it possible. So thank you, sir. That's so awesome of you. So Foggier Window basically is the double IPA or Big Brother version of Foggy Window. I have not gotten the chance to have too many monkish beers in my life. Obviously, I live on the East Coast, so that's a little bit difficult. I have had one that a buddy of mine was able to score in a trade, so that's pretty much it. I don't have a tremendous amount of background in their particular beers. I do obviously know that they kind of focus in on, that hazy kind of New England style, although Bud had kind of mentioned that Henry, the owner of Monkish, is kind of doing his own kind of interpretation. So I'm really super stoked to get into this beer, and let's and give it a shot. So let's go ahead. Let's go into the drill. Let's pop a top on this guy, get a look at the appearance, get the aroma, taste it, and then of course we're gonna rate it. All right. So let's get it going. Get that beer open. I'm just gonna push this glass actually right there. I'll probably just do the pour on camera here because, as I mentioned previously, I'm trying to do some different things as it relates to the pours, knowing how awful I do on camera on them. So hopefully that's a little bit better. All right, so we'll get that beer squared away right here. So, appearance of the Foggier Window. Looks absolutely unbelievable. Full on opaque haze. Super, super, super New England in profile, naturally, of course. Head's kind of interesting. It's got like some, there's not a lot of kind of body to that head. It's dissipating pretty quickly, and it's got some pretty large bubbles going on there. Literally holy shit. Literally the blast of pineapple aroma that I got out of this beer the minute that I opened that up is pretty freaking intense. So, wow. All right. Let's go ahead and get ourselves an aroma. Oh, Jesus. Oh, my God. Oh. Where do I start? So, the best way I can describe this beer from a nose is I have yet to smell a beer this intense in terms of tropical fruits, bit of dank weed, and even kind of a little bit of pininess and maybe potentially grapefruit there. Since I first came across and had my first beers from Trillium in Boston back in 2014. This is absolutely insane. Massive, massive, hold on. Yeah, massive blasts of pineapple, mango, tropical fruit for days. Huge bit amount of dank, kind of dirty, kind of weed going on there as well, like kind bud. And then there's kind of a little bit of sweetness going on there as well, but the sweetness is more rounded, right? Like I'm not getting like I'm like, ooh, that maybe could be cloying. No, that sweetness is kind of beautifully rounding out those just explosive tropical fruit, and even a little bit of grapefruit and piney aromas coming off this beer. Smells insane. So let's go ahead and give her a taste. Bud, I don't know how to thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Cheers. Oh my God. Oof. Wow. So the one thing that Bud told me about this beer is that the hops that are being used actually is They're Southern Hemisphere kind of dominated. I believe Nelson, and I think that the connection for the Nelson hops in this particular batch is where Sean Hill of Hill Farmstead gets his Nelson hops. And so I'm just getting a massive, massive, huge blast, again, of tropical fruit flavors. Little to no bitterness to speak of. The beer, I have to put this in the right context because the beer has a touch of sweetness to it, but it is not sweet, if that makes sense. There's just the right amount of sweetness to the beer in the taste that rounds out all of those huge, massive, dank tropical fruit, pine, and grapefruit flavors in the taste. So very similar from nose to taste. Going back in for another sip. Oh my word. Yeah. It's got that little bit of sweetness. Again, that rounds things out. At the end of the sip, you do get like this little twinge of bitterness, right? Like, which is kind of nice, man. Like, I understand what Bud is saying in terms of, yeah, it's kind of, Henry and Monkish's beers and their IPAs kind of have their style rooted in the New England style, right? But there is some differences here that I can understand what he was saying, that, you know, they're kind of doing their own thing and kind of creating a style of their own. I kind of get that because, again, end of the kind of palate, you finish off with just like a nice little twinge of bitterness, right? Like it doesn't linger or anything like that, but it has that kind of, you know, West Coast kind of bitterness characteristic. It all flashes through like I have nothing right now. The sweetness kind of rounds things out for a little bit. And then obviously I think this can was or this beer was canned last week. So like there is a little heat on it at the back end, but it actually just helps to accentuate kind of what's going on in the front. So I kind of get what Bud is saying. Like, yeah, this is a New England style or a hazy IPA in its construction, but there are elements of this beer that is making it unique. Going back in for one more sip, and now I'm going to rate it. Dear Lord. Wow. Absolutely, absolutely incredible. I did let it sit out. Bud mentioned, hey, kind of pop that can out for a little bit and kind of let those flavors kind of come together, and they totally did. So again, to kind of round this one out before I do rate it, huge, massive blasts of pineapple and mango up front. Even almost kind of a little bit of a delicate melon as well. You do also in the taste get layers of both pine and grapefruit, which is kind of cool. And as I mentioned, the sweetness at the back end helps to kind of round out the beer while at the same time providing just a little twinge of that right bitterness to almost kind of make the thing come full circle. Like it's the total package, man. This is fucking impressive. Wow. So let's go ahead. Craftavore Tastes Rating. That's a 5 cap beer, man. I wish I had a bell to ring like Darwin does, because that is literally 5 caps, 100 out of 100, hunets, whatever you want to call it. Absolutely incredible. Bud, thank you so much, sir. A 5 cap beer from Monkish Brewing Foggier window coming in at 8.1% ABV. That'll do it for this episode of the Craftavore Tastes. I hope you do join me for another episode where I drink, review, and rate and repeat again. But it's going to be really, really, really hard to find kind of beers that live up to Foggier window. Absolutely incredible. Cheers. Till next time.